Hi class, this is lesson 12, comparing and elapsed time word problems. So we're going to be talking about comparing, like how much does one person have versus another one, or elapsed time, so how much time has passed. So again, put this in your notes. Plot type, again, that's just the type of story problem that you're reading. When you're talking about comparing, the equation that you would write, you would always take the greater number and subtract the smaller number from it to get the difference, or G minus S equals D. Remember, those are variables, so you can use whichever letter you would like. An elapsed time problem, you take the later date, or the one that's most or is closest to you. So if we're talking about 1980 or 2011, 2011 would be the later date. Okay, it's the one closest to now. Later minus earlier equals difference, so L minus E equals D. The types of questions that you might be asked would be like, how many more, or how many less? Okay, so if you see that in a problem, if they're asking you how many more something is than the other, or how many less, that is a comparing or an elapsed time plot that you can think of. Okay, here's I have two examples for you, and you do not need to write these down unless you want to. We're going to identify the plot, we're going to write an equation, and we will solve. So Agnes worked for her employer from January 1954 to January 1999. For how many years was Agnes employed? So if you would like to work out plot, equation, and solution on your own, press pause now and then resume the video when you're ready. The plot. Because we're talking about time, how many years? Years is a measure of time. This would be an elapsed time problem. The equation, if you remember from the slide that we just looked at, we take the later time, or the one closest to today, which would be 1999, and we subtract 1954 from it, the earlier date, and that would give us D, our difference. That's an equation. You'll be asked to write equations, so make sure you do this step. It's not enough to do this. If you do this on your paper, that is not correct, because then more than likely right here you solve it, and that's not the equation that we want. We need to see the variable so that we know what we're solving for. Solution then would be 45 years, and since this is time and it's measurable, we need to have that label. Okay, last example. Again, you do not need to write this down. We're going to identify the plot, write an equation, and solve. The Star newspaper sells 25,750 papers each day. The Recorder Dispatch sells 31,250 papers daily. How many more papers does the Dispatch distribute each day? Okay, remember we said how many more? That's exactly the type of words that you need to be looking for to know that we're talking about a comparing or an elapsed time problem. Since this is an item, it's not time, so this is comparing problem. The equation, even though we're talking about comparing and not elapsed time, it's very similar. What is the greater amount? So 31,250 minus the lesser amount, 25,750, will equal your variable. And in this one I have D. I could have had P if I wanted to do papers. And then to solve, you just subtract, and you get 5,500, and that should be labeled. It should say papers there. That's it for comparing and elapsed time problems. Again, you might be asked to write a story problem or a word problem associated with an equation. If you have questions about that, or you want to make sure that you're doing it right, please ask me. I'll be glad to help. So that's it for 12. I will see you in class.